The year was 2157. Humanity had spread beyond Earth, building homes on Mars and Europa. People looked to the stars with hope instead of fear. The Terran Alliance, Earth's united government, had created ships that could travel faster than light, using something called the fold drive. This new technology bent space, allowing ships to cross vast distances in days instead of centuries. Captain Elaine Murphy stood on the bridge of the survey vessel Horizon, watching the new star system appear on the main screen. Kepler 592 glowed with promise, its 7 planets orbiting in a perfect dance around their sun. This was her 5th exploration mission, but the thrill of discovery never faded. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings from the 4th planet," said Lieutenant William Carter. His fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "It doesn't match any natural formation we've seen before." Elaine leaned forward. "Artificial? Possibly." Carter adjusted the sensors. "The pattern is too regular for a natural phenomenon." Dr. Catherine Ross joined them at the main console. The science officer's eyes widened as she studied the data. "Those are definitely artificial structures, and they're active." Elaine felt a chill run down her spine. In all their explorations, humanity had found ruins and remnants of civilizations, long gone but never anything still functioning, never anything alive. "Are we looking at first contact?" she whispered. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. After decades of searching the stars, they might be the first humans to meet an alien intelligence. "Set course for the 4th planet," Elaine ordered. "All departments on high alert. This is not a drill." The Horizon moved carefully into orbit, around Kepler 592d, a rocky world with thin atmosphere and rust-colored plains. The structures were visible even from orbit, geometric shapes too perfect to be natural, gleaming under the alien sun. "No response to our standard greeting package," said communications specialist Adam Wright after their 3rd attempt to make contact. Elaine nodded. "They might not understand our methods of communication. Prepare a landing party. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, landing half a mile from the nearest structure. Elaine led the team, which included Dr. Ross, Lieutenant Carter, Adam Wright, and Security Officer Beth Campbell. They wore standard exploration suits with transparent helmets that would allow their faces to be seen. "Remember," Elaine said as they approached, "we represent all of humanity. First impressions matter." The structure rose before them like a cathedral made of some dark, reflective material. No doors were visible, but as they approached, a section of the wall simply disappeared, revealing an entrance. "They know we're here," Carter said, his hand resting on his sidearm. "Weapons down," ordered Elaine. "We come in peace." Inside, the air was breathable, confirmed Dr. Ross after checking her instruments. They removed their helmets and continued deeper into the structure. The corridors seemed to shift and change behind them, though none of them could catch it happening. "Hello," Elaine called out. Her voice echoed strangely, as if the walls themselves were listening. A soft blue light appeared ahead, growing brighter as they approached. It formed into a shape, vaguely humanoid but taller, thinner, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. "Greetings," said the being, its voice somehow inside their minds rather than in the air. "I am Vexlar of the Verax Collective. We have been observing your approach." Adam Wright stepped forward, his translator device ready, but found he didn't need it. "You speak our language?" "We speak directly to your thoughts," explained Vexlar. "It is more efficient than sound waves." The next hours passed in a blur of information exchange. The Verax claimed to be part of a vast interstellar civilization spanning hundreds of star systems. They expressed great interest in human culture, history, and especially technology. "Your fold drive is fascinating," said Vexlar as they showed the humans their own ship designs. "Our vessels use a different principle. We tear space rather than fold it." Dr. Ross was allowed to examine some of their technology, while Adam Wright shared stories of Earth. The meeting seemed to be going well. Too well, thought Elaine, who noticed how the Verax asked many questions, but provided few concrete answers about themselves. While examining a Varax navigation system, Dr. Ross noticed something alarming. She casually walked back to where Elaine stood. "Captain," she whispered. "They're mapping Earth's location and our colonies. They're gathering military intelligence." Elaine's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely. Their system was tracking our defense grids, fleet positions, population centers. This isn't a cultural exchange, it's reconnaissance." Elaine gave a small nod. "Alert the others. We need to leave now." But as they turned to go, more Varax appeared, blocking their path. "Is something wrong, Captain Murphy?" asked Vexillar, though the words in their minds now carried a colder tone. "Not at all," Elaine lied smoothly. "But we must return to our ship to report this historic meeting to our leaders." "That won't be necessary," said Vexillar. "We have already learned what we needed from your databases. Your species has potential that cannot be allowed to develop. Further," the walls pulsed with red light. Lieutenant Carter drew his weapon, but before he could fire, a wave of energy knocked them all to the ground. "Run!" Elaine shouted, drawing her own sidearm and firing at the nearest Varax. The energy bolt passed right through the alien, but struck something in the wall that exploded in a shower of sparks. The distraction gave them just enough time to flee. They ran through shifting corridors, somehow finding their way back to the entrance. Outside, they sprinted for their shuttle. "Horizon, this is Murphy." Elaine gasped into her comm unit. "Hostile contact. Prepare for emergency departure." The shuttle lifted off just as energy beams began to strike the ground around them. Lieutenant Carter piloted with desperate skill, dodging attacks as they raced back to the horizon, but they were too late. As they approached their ship, they watched, in horror, as a massive Varax vessel uncloaked directly above it. Energy beams lanced out, cutting through the horizon's hull like paper. "No!" screamed Elaine as her ship, her home for the past 3 years, broke apart in space. "They're coming for us now," Carter warned, as the enemy vessel turned toward their tiny shuttle. "The escape pod." Dr. Ross pointed to the rear of the shuttle. "It has stealth capabilities." They had only moments. Elaine made the hardest decision of her life. "Carter, Ross, you take the pod with Wright. I'll draw them away." "Captain, no," protested Carter. "That's an order. Someone has to warn Earth." She gripped his shoulder. "Tell them what we found. Tell them to prepare." Before they could argue further, the shuttle rocked from a direct hit. Emergency lights flashed as oxygen began to vent into space. The last thing Lieutenant Carter saw was Captain Murphy pushing him into the escape pod. Her face calm despite knowing what would happen next. Then the pod ejected, its stealth systems activating immediately. From the tiny viewport, they watched their shuttle explode, taking their captain and the pursuit vessels with it. As the stars stretched around them, the 3 survivors sat in stunned silence. Their pod had only enough life support for 2 weeks. The nearest human outpost was 3 weeks away at maximum speed. "She saved us," whispered Adam, his face pale with shock. "And now we have to save everyone else," said Dr. Ross, already working on the damaged communication array. "We have to warn them." Lieutenant Carter stared out at the stars, now seeming cold and hostile. "The war has already started," he said quietly, "and they've fired the first shot." In the darkness of space, their tiny pod flew toward home, carrying a warning that would change humanity forever. 6 months had passed since the horizon was destroyed. Lieutenant William Carter stood at the window of the Mars Defense Station, watching as ships gathered for what might be humanity's last stand. Their small escape pod had reached the outpost, barely, with life support systems failing in the final hours. The warning they carried changed everything. At first, many didn't believe them. Aliens, an attack, it seemed too fantastic. But Dr. Ross had managed to save data from her scans of Varax technology. The proof was there, and humanity began to prepare. Not that 6 months was nearly enough time. "Lieutenant Carter," a voice called from behind him. He turned to see Admiral Gregory Barnes, the highest-ranking officer in the Terran fleet. Barnes was a legend, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion 15 years ago. His face was lined with worry now. "Sir," Carter saluted. "At ease." Walk with me. Barnes led him through corridors filled with rushing personnel. The long-range sensors picked them up. A Verax fleet just appeared near Saturn. At least 30. Ships all bigger than anything we have. Carter felt his stomach drop. How long do we have? Hours, maybe less. They're moving fast. Barnes stopped at a tactical display showing the solar system. Red dots marked the incoming Verax ships. I've called every ship we have to defend Mars. Earth needs more time to finish their defenses. The Admiral looked older than his 60 years. Tell me again what you saw. What are we facing? Carter had told the story 100 times, but he understood why Barnes needed to hear it again. They're advanced, sir. Their weapons cut through the horizon like it was paper. But it's not just their technology, it's how they think. There was no hesitation, no attempt at real communication. They got what they wanted from us, then decided to eliminate us. Barnes nodded grimly. We received a transmission from the Ganymede outpost an hour ago. The Verax wiped them out. 3,000 people gone. On the other side of Mars, in a hastily constructed research facility, Dr. Catherine Ross worked frantically. Screens surrounded her, filled with data from the Verax scans she had stolen. Something about their energy signatures bothered her. There was a pattern she couldn't quite understand. Dr. Ross, called out a young researcher. Message from New Eden Colony. They're under attack. New Eden was humanity's most distant colony, a small outpost with barely 5,000 people. Not strategically important, just farmers and researchers. Show me, she said. The screen filled with chaotic footage, buildings burning, people running. The Verax moved through the settlement with cold efficiency. Then the camera focused on something specific, a research building with the words Fold Drive Testing Facility on its side. The Verax were concentrating. Their attack there. That's it, breathed Ross. They're targeting our Fold Drive research. That's what they're afraid of. She rushed to the communication terminal to contact Admiral Barnes, but alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The Verax had arrived at Mars on New Eden. Olivia Martinez crawled through the ruins of what had been her home. Her husband and daughter were gone, vaporized when the first attack hit the residential sector. She had been at work in the colony's power plant. Now she moved through smoke and debris, trying to reach the emergency shelter. Ahead she saw movement. A man in a tattered military uniform was gathering survivors. This way, he called out. I'm Frank Holloway, former Marine. We have a secure location. Olivia followed him along with 20 other survivors. They reached an underground maintenance facility that had escaped the attack. What do they want? Someone asked through tears. To kill us all, Holloway said bluntly. But we're not making it easy for them. He showed them the weapons he had salvaged. Standard-issue military rifles and some mining explosives. Not much against the advanced Verax technology, but better than nothing. I noticed something, Olivia said quietly. When they entered our atmosphere, their shields flickered. Something about our air affects their technology. Holloway looked at her with new interest. You're sure? I'm an environmental engineer. I was monitoring atmospheric readings when they arrived. There was a disruption pattern around their ships. Can you recreate the data? If I can reach my workstation at the power plant. Holloway nodded. Then that's what we do next. Back at Mars, the battle had begun. Earth ships fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The Verax weapons tore through their defenses with terrifying ease. On the command ship, Admiral Barnes watched with growing horror as his fleet was decimated. Lieutenant Carter stood beside him, operating the tactical systems. We've lost the Defender and the Solaris, Carter reported, his voice steady despite the catastrophe unfolding before them. The Verax are breaking through Sector 7. Barnes made a decision. Order all civilian ships to evacuate to Earth. We'll cover their retreat. Sir, that's a suicide mission. I know. Barnes looked at the young lieutenant. But we need time. Earth isn't ready. A communication officer turned from his station. Admiral, incoming transmission from the research facility. Dr. Ross says it's urgent. Ross's face appeared on screen, smoke visible behind her. Admiral, I figured it out. The Verax are targeting our fold drive technology specifically. All their attacks focus on research centers working on fold drive enhancements. Why would they care about our FTL tech? Barnes asked. Theirs is clearly superior. It's different, not superior, Ross corrected. Our approach to faster-than-light travel is fundamentally different from theirs. They tear space, we fold it. Something about our method threatens them. The ship rocked as a Verax beam struck nearby. Can we use this information? Barnes asked. Maybe. I need more time to... The transmission cut off as an explosion rocked the research facility. Get her back, ordered Barnes, but it was too late. Carter looked at the tactical display. Half their fleet was gone, and the Verax were pushing closer to Mars. Soon they would reach the civilian evacuation ships. New plan, said Barnes. We make our stand here, but I want you on one of those evacuation ships. Sir, my place is here. Your place is wherever you can do the most good. Barnes placed a hand on Carter's shoulder. You survived the first encounter. You know these enemies better than anyone. Earth will need that knowledge. Before Carter could protest further, the ship rocked violently again. That was a direct hit, someone shouted. Hull breach on levels 3 through 7. Go now, Barnes ordered, pushing Carter toward the escape pods. That's a direct order, Lieutenant. As Carter's pod launched toward the evacuation fleet, he watched the Admiral's ship turn to face the Verax Armada head-on. It was a magnificent and terrible sight. The ship accelerated, ramming directly into the lead Verax vessel. Both ships erupted in a blinding explosion. The sacrifice bought just enough time. The civilian fleet jumped away, carrying the wounded, the children, the scientists, and the hope for humanity's survival back to Earth. As Carter's ship approached Earth, he stared at the datapad containing Dr. Ross's final transmission. Something about the Verax sphere of fold drive technology might be the key to humanity's survival, if only they could understand it in time. On New Eden, Olivia Martinez and Frank Holloway had reached the power plant. As Verax ships patrolled above, Olivia worked feverishly to recover her atmospheric data. If she could understand how Earth's atmosphere disrupted Verax shields, they might have a weapon. The war for survival had truly begun, and humanity, despite terrible losses, refused to go quietly into the night. Earth was no longer the blue jewel of space. Smoke rose from the ruins of once great cities. The Verax had established control over large parts of South America and Asia. 3 months had passed since the fall of Mars, and every day brought new attacks. But humanity was learning to fight back. In an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Catherine Ross worked with a team of scientists. She had barely escaped Mars before the research facility was destroyed. Now she studied the data Olivia Martinez had sent from New Eden about the Verax shield weakness. The atmospheric disruption is consistent, she told the gathered military leaders. Something in our air interferes with their shield technology. We've isolated the effect and can reproduce it. Lieutenant William Carter, now promoted to commander, studied the weapon prototype on the table. It looked like a bulky rifle with an unusual barrel. How effective is it? He asked. It creates a field that mimics the atmospheric effect but concentrated, Dr. Ross explained. In tests, it completely disables Verax shields within a 20-foot radius. Their armor is still tough, but without shields, our conventional weapons can damage them. General Patricia Alvarez, the new head of Earth's Defense Forces, nodded. Begin mass production immediately. Every resistance cell gets these disruptors first. Carter picked up the weapon. I'll take the first batch to the European front. The Verax are massing for another push there. After the meeting, Dr. Ross caught up with Carter in the corridor. There's something else you should know. The Verax communication we intercepted last week, we finally translated it. What did it say? They're not just reporting to their commanders. They mentioned something called the Sovereign repeatedly. I think they're taking orders from a single entity. Carter frowned. A leader? Maybe something more. The way they refer to it, it's almost religious. I need to know more. Carter understood. You want me to capture a live Verax? If possible. We need to understand who we're really fighting. A week later, Commander Carter led a squad through the ruins of Prague. They carried the new atmospheric disruptors, moving carefully to avoid Varex patrols. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Diane Powell, signaled from ahead. 2 Varex guards at the entrance to their command post, she whispered. Carter nodded. Perfect, remember, we need one alive. They positioned themselves and activated the disruptors. The air shimmered around the Varex, who immediately began looking at their wrist devices in confusion. Before they could react, Carter's team fired. 1 Varex fell instantly. The other took a non-lethal shot to its leg and collapsed. They moved quickly, securing the wounded alien with specialized restraints. As they prepared to retreat, Carter noticed something strange about the command post. That's not Varex technology, he said, pointing to a glowing purple crystal in the center of the room. Download everything from their systems and grab that crystal. Back at the base, Dr. Ross examined the captured Varex. The alien was tall and thin with 4 arms and skin that shimmered with colors. It refused to speak at first, but when shown the crystal, its reaction was immediate and fearful. The Sovereign sees all, it said in that strange mind voice they had first encountered on Kepler 592. You cannot hide from the Sovereign. Who is the Sovereign? Asked Ross. The Varex trembled. Not who, what. The Sovereign existed before stars. It commands. We obey. Why attack humanity? Carter demanded. Your fold technology. It disrupts the Sovereign's connection. All must be connected to the Sovereign. All must serve. Carter and Ross exchanged glances. This changed everything they thought they knew about the war. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Olivia Martinez and Frank Holloway had turned their small band of survivors into an effective resistance cell. The group had grown to over 100 fighters, equipped with makeshift versions of the atmospheric disruptors based on Olivia's original discovery. They moved through the ruins of New Eden's capital, approaching a Varex processing facility. Inside, captured humans were being studied and experimented on. Remember the plan, Holloway told the fighters. Team 1 creates a distraction. Team 2 disables their shields. Team 3 frees the prisoners. Olivia checked her disruptor one last time. She was part of Team 2. In the months since losing her family, she had transformed from an environmental engineer into a hardened fighter. For Earth, she said quietly, and the others nodded. The attack began with perfectly timed precision. Team 1 set off explosions at the far side of the facility. As Varex guards rushed to respond, Olivia's team activated their disruptors and moved in through a side entrance. With their shields down, the Varex were vulnerable to human weapons. The fight was brutal but quick. They freed 50 human prisoners, some who had been subjected to terrible experiments. Among them was a Varex communication specialist named Zerval, who had been injured and abandoned by his own kind. Why would they leave you behind? Olivia asked as they treated his wounds. I questioned orders, Zerval replied weakly. The Sovereign tolerates no questions. What is the Sovereign? Holloway demanded. A being of immense psychic power. It conquered the Varex 10,000 years ago. Before that, it conquered the Drylax, and before them, the Zor. Many species served the Sovereign unwillingly. This information was too important to keep local. Holloway used their restored communication array to contact Earth headquarters. For the first time, humanity understood they weren't just fighting the Varex, but something much older and more dangerous controlling them. Back on Earth, the tide was beginning to turn. The atmospheric disruptors had proven remarkably effective. Humanity fought with desperate ferocity, using guerrilla tactics and their knowledge of Earth's terrain to their advantage. General Alvarez called a meeting of all resistance leaders, connected via secure communications. Olivia Martinez and Frank Holloway joined from New Eden. Commander Carter and Dr. Ross presented their findings. The Sovereign is a psychic entity that controls the Varex and other species, Ross explained. Our fold drive technology somehow interferes with its control, which is why they attacked us first. Can we use this against them? Asked Alvarez. Possibly, said Ross. I've been experimenting with the crystal Carter's team recovered. It seems to be a psychic amplifier. If we can reverse engineer it and combine it with our fold drive technology, we might be able to disrupt the Sovereign's control over the Varax. Entirely, Carter added. And we may have a way to find the Sovereign. The captured Varax's memories include coordinates for a central command world. It could be where this entity is located. Alvarez stood up, her face resolute. Then we have a plan. Operation Thunderstrike begins now. We push the Varax back, secure our planet, and prepare a counteroffensive. Across the globe, humans received their orders. The resistance cells coordinated their attacks. For the first time since the war began, the Varax were forced to retreat from major cities. Intercepted communications revealed the aliens' confusion and alarm. They had expected humanity to be easily conquered, like so many species, before. Instead, they faced unprecedented resistance. In a Varax command ship orbiting Earth, the alien General Kravek received a direct message from the Sovereign. The psychic pressure was painful, causing his skin to lose its shimmer. The humans continue to resist, he reported. Their new weapons neutralize our shields. They fight with unexpected ferocity. The Sovereign's response filled his mind like burning ice. They are dangerous. Their technology threatens the connection. Increase the attacks. No mercy, no survivors. But as Kravek prepared to relay these orders, his ship rocked violently. Human fighters had broken through their defenses using the new disruptors. For the first time in the war, a Varax command ship fell from the sky, crashing into the Atlantic Ocean. The battle for Earth was far from over, but something had changed. Humanity had found its strength, and soon they would take the fight to the stars. 2 years had passed since the Varax first attacked. Earth was a different place now. Cities lay in ruins, but from those ruins rose a new kind of human civilization, one built for war. Every factory produced weapons. Every child old enough to understand knew how to use an atmospheric disruptor. The entire planet had united with a single purpose: survival. Commander William Carter stood on the bridge of the Alliance, humanity's new flagship. It was built using captured Varax technology combined with human innovation. The ship was twice as large as any vessel humans had created before, and its heart was a modified fold drive that Dr. Catherine Ross had redesigned. Status report, Carter ordered as the final preparations were made. Lieutenant Powell, now his executive officer, checked her screens. All systems ready, sir. The fleet is in position. General Alvarez sends her final approval from Earth Command. Carter nodded. 200 ships waited in Earth orbit, the combined strength of humanity's remaining military force. This was their one chance to end the war. The plan was simple but dangerous. Take the fight directly to the Sovereign. Dr. Ross entered the bridge, carrying a device that glowed with purple light. It was based on the crystal they had captured, modified to disrupt the Sovereign's psychic control. The psychic disruptor is online, she said. Once we reach their home system, this should break the Sovereign's hold on the Varax and other enslaved species. Carter looked at the crew around him, faces hardened by 2 years of brutal war. Send the signal. Operation Freedom begins now. Across the fleet, fold drives activated simultaneously. Space bent around them, and the ships disappeared from Earth orbit. On New Eden, Olivia Martinez and Frank Holloway prepared their own mission. They had rebuilt their colony into a fortress and had constructed a special ship with Zerval's help. The Varax defector had become a valuable ally, providing insight into Varax technology and culture. The human fleet will attack the main Varax worlds, Zerval explained. But the Sovereign has a backup system, a network of psychic amplifiers across 3 planets. If those remain active, the Sovereign can re-establish control. Then that's our target, Holloway said, checking his weapons. Their ship was small but fast, designed for stealth rather than combat. Olivia studied the star charts one last time. The nearest amplifier is in the Proxima system. We can reach it in 3 jumps. Their small team boarded the ship, named the Horizon's Revenge in honor of Captain Murphy's lost vessel. They had volunteered for what was likely a suicide mission, but one that could be crucial to victory. In the depths of space, Carter's fleet emerged from fold space near the Varax home system. They were immediately met by a massive defensive line of Varax ships. They were expecting us, Powell said grimly. Carter studied the tactical display. Proceed as planned. All ships, activate atmospheric disruptors. The human fleet moved forward, their new weapons creating bubbles of disruption that disabled Varric shields. The battle was fierce with losses on both sides, but the human ships pressed forward with relentless determination. On the planet below, something unexpected was happening. As the human fleet approached, thousands of Varric civilians gathered in the streets of their cities. They were watching the sky with something like hope. Dr. Ross monitored unusual communications from the surface. Carter, I'm picking up distress signals from the planet. Not military, civilian, they're asking for help. Help? Carter was confused. From us? From anyone, Ross translated. Listen to this. A Varric's voice came through the speakers. The Sovereign's control weakens near human ships. Many of us are briefly free for the first time in generations. Help us break the control completely. Carter made a quick decision. Change of plans. Defensive formation around the planet. Launch the landing parties. Dr. Ross, prepare the psychic disruptor. Meanwhile, Olivia's team had reached the first amplifier planet. They encountered minimal resistance. Most Varric's forces had been sent to defend against the main human fleet. That's it. Zerval pointed to a towering structure on the planet's surface. The psychic amplifier. It boosts the Sovereign's control across this entire sector. Holloway studied it through binoculars. Minimal guards. They never expected an attack here. They never expected humans to fight back at all, Olivia said quietly. That was their first mistake. Their team moved quickly, using atmospheric disruptors, to neutralize the few guards. Olivia placed explosive charges at key points on the structure while Holloway kept watch. Charges set, she reported. 10 minutes until detonation. As they retreated to their ship, alarms suddenly blared across the complex. They've spotted us, Holloway shouted as energy beams began striking around them. Back at the Varric's homeworld, Carter led the first landing party to the surface. They were met not by hostile forces but by Varric civilians. The aliens kept their distance, their skin colors shifting rapidly in what seemed to be anxiety or hope. A Varric stepped forward. I am Rilnar, leader of the Resistance. For centuries, we have fought the Sovereign's control from within but never successfully. Your fold technology weakens its grip. Where is the Sovereign? Carter asked. Rilnar pointed to an enormous structure that dominated the horizon, a black crystalline mountain that seemed to absorb light. There. It has existed for millennia. It is not a Varric's. It came from beyond, forcing our ancestors to build its prison temple, then enslaving our minds. Dr. Ross activated her scanner. The psychic energy coming from that structure is off the charts. The Sovereign is definitely there. Carter touched his communicator. Alliance, we need transport for the psychic disruptor. And tell Martinez's team to hurry with those amplifiers. At the amplifier planet, Olivia's team was pinned down by Varric's guards. The explosives were counting down, but they couldn't reach their ship. We need to move now, Holloway shouted over the weapons fire. 3 minutes left, Zerval suddenly stood up. I will draw their fire, you both get to the ship. Before they could protest, the Varric's defector ran into the open, firing at the guards. His action created just enough confusion for Olivia and Holloway to make a break for their ship. As they lifted off, the explosives detonated. The amplifier collapsed in a spectacular implosion of energy. Zerval was nowhere to be seen. 1 down, Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. 2 to go. On the Varric's homeworld, Carter and Dr. Ross approached the Sovereign's temple with the psychic disruptor. Varric's resistance fighters accompanied them, providing guidance through the complex structure. As they entered the central chamber, they finally saw the Sovereign. It wasn't a creature of flesh and blood, but a swirling mass of energy contained within a crystalline structure. Tendrils of purple light extended outward, connecting to Varric's who stood motionless around it. Their eyes, vacant. Brave little humans, a voice echoed in their minds. You cannot stop what has endured for eons. I have consumed civilizations far greater than yours. Carter felt a pressure in his mind, the Sovereign attempting to take control. but the proximity to the fold drive technology in their suits seemed to shield them. "Dr. Ross, now," he shouted. Ross activated the psychic disruptor. The device hummed to life, emitting a field of energy that clashed with the Sovereign's purple tendrils. The enslaved Verax around them began to shake, then collapsed. "It's working," Ross exclaimed. But the Sovereign fought back. The crystal structure began to crack as the entity within tried to escape. At that moment, Olivia's team destroyed the second amplifier across the galaxy. The psychic network weakened further. The Sovereign's tendrils began to withdraw. "No." The voice in their minds had lost its calm superiority. Now it sounded afraid. "I have existed before your species crawled from the oceans. I will not be defeated by primitives." The crystal structure shattered, and the Sovereign's true form emerged, a writhing mass of energy trying to escape into space. "It's getting away," Carter shouted. In orbit above, the Alliance detected the energy surge. The acting commander made a split-second decision. The flagship dove toward the planet, its modified fold drive activating at full power. "What are they doing?" Ross asked as the ground shook around them. Carter looked up and understood. "Saving us all." The Alliance created a fold space bubble directly around the Sovereign's escaping form. Space bent and collapsed, trapping the ancient entity in a pocket dimension from which it could never escape. The cost was tremendous. The Alliance and its crew were lost in the same dimensional pocket, but the psychic pressure across the galaxy instantly vanished. Free of the Sovereign's control for the first time in thousands of years, the Verax dropped their weapons. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a moment of stunning silence across the stars. In the ruins of the Sovereign's temple, Carter helped Ross to her feet. Around them, Verax were awakening to their freedom, looking at each other and at the humans in confusion and wonder. "What now?" Ross asked quietly. Carter looked at the Verax, then back at her. "Now we rebuild. Not just Earth, not just humanity. Everything." The stars seemed to shine brighter that day. A terrible war had ended. The species that had suffered under the Sovereign began the long process of healing. And throughout the galaxy, word spread of the humans, the species whose ferocity in war was matched only by their capacity for peace, whose technology had freed not just themselves, but all who had been enslaved. Even the stars, it was said, had feared humanity's wrath. But in modern sights, the end, they had more reason to respect humanity's compassion.